Hi everyone, welcome to Wow Stories. I am Miss Wow, once the wealthiest man in Asia with a net worth of $61.7 billion. Named as one of the 10 thought leaders who shaped the last decade in 2019 by the renowned Foreign Policy magazine. Founded a business empire that completely transformed the lifestyles and consumption habits of 1.4 billion Chinese people. Jack Ma, affectionately referred to by young netizens as Daddy Ma. Some even consider him a prophet of our times, as many of his forecasts in the fields of e-commerce, real estate, technology, and global trade have come to pass. However, on October 24, 2020, after delivering a speech at the Bund Financial Summit, he suddenly vanished from public view. A week later, on November 2nd, media outlets released a bombshell report. Ma had been summoned for a joint meeting with China's 4 leading regulatory agencies, including the central bank. The day following that, on November 3rd, just 48 hours before Ant Group's scheduled IPO, its listing was abruptly called off. In September 2021, at the Global Code Conference, then the world's richest man, Elon Musk, was asked by the host for his insights into China's burgeoning tech landscape. After a pause that seemed to stretch longer than the mere 5 seconds it was, Musk finally broke the silence with a probing question. Do you know where Jack Ma is? The host, taken aback, could only respond with the same question. Musk simply replied, I don't know, I'm just curious.
Where is Jack Ma?
Where is Jack? Do you know?
No, I was curious.
Since the end of 2020, persistent rumors have circulated online suggesting Ma has been casually traveling abroad following his speech at the Bund. It wasn't until March 27, 2023 that he suddenly appeared in Hangzhou after a long absence, visiting Cloud Valley, the educational institution he co-founded with Alibaba's top executives. Notably, during his appearance, the camera captured him exclusively engaged in conversations about education, refraining entirely from discussing business matters. In the final days of 2023, the Central Bank of China announced its approval for restructuring Alipay's ownership, eliminating the presence of a controlling shareholder. Henceforth, China's largest third-party payment platform no longer bore the name Ma. What has Alibaba experienced since its inception in 1999? Why did Jack Ma abruptly vanish only to re-emerge later? Today we'll delve into Jack Ma and his business empire.
15 years ago, we want to be a company that will be the top 10 websites of the world.
Alibaba is filing for its IPO.
Ambitious for what?
Ambitious that, change the world.
In late October 2020, the China Finance 40 Forum held its second Bund Financial Summit in Shanghai. The summit's theme was Crisis and Opportunity, New Finance and New Economy in the New Landscape. On the second day of the conference, October 24th, Ma delivered a 20-minute speech as the co-chair of the United Nations High-Level Panel on Digital Cooperation. At the outset of his speech, he humorously remarked that he was not a professional and merely intended to share some professional opinions from a non-professional perspective, as he observed that many professionals today no longer conduct themselves by professional standards anyway.
分享一些非专业人士的专业看法。所幸呢，我发现现在绝大部分专业人士已经不讲专业了。
He went on to say that the challenges facing China's financial industry differ from those encountered by Western counterparts. These challenges do not stem from systemic financial risks, as China's financial framework needs fundamental systemization. He emphasized that China's finance industry grapples with the risk of an absent financial ecosystem. He draws a comparison, suggesting that China's financial sector, like those of other emerging developing countries, resembles a young adolescent in its growth, still lacking the maturity of a fully developed ecosystem.
因为中国金融基本上没有系统。
He also raised doubts about China's regulatory system. Highlighting the distinction between supervision and regulation, he noted that supervision involves overseeing development, while regulation should only come into force when problems surface. According to Ma, while China excels increasingly in regulatory ability, it falls short in supervision. He expressed the concern that while effective supervision methods pose no threat to promising innovations, outdated approaches certainly do. He made the example that just as we cannot manage an airport the same way we operate a train station, we cannot shape the future with approaches from the past. This sentiment resonated strongly throughout his speech, becoming most pointed when he claimed that China's banks today persist in adopting a pawnshop mentality, relying heavily on collaterals and guarantees.
今天的银行延续的还是当铺思想。
He also shared a humorous anecdote about borrowing from banks, saying that, "When you borrow 100,000 yuan from the bank, you might feel uneasy. When you borrow 10 million yuan from the bank, you and the bank both feel on edge. But when you borrow 1 billion yuan from the bank, suddenly it's the bank that's sweating bullets while you can sit back without a worry at all." The banks like to lend money to good companies and those that don't need it, turning many good companies into bad ones. Knowing that the summit featured attendees ranging from government officials and regulatory agency representatives to prominent figures such as directors of major financial and economic research institutes, Ma's speech undoubtedly dealt them a resounding blow. In fact, this isn't the first instance of him making striking remarks in public. On August 26, 2019, during the China International Smart Industry Expo held in Chongqing, he asserted, "Technology is developed, not regulated. Currently, there's an abundance of documents saying what not to do, strictly prohibiting various activities. Instead, policies should aim to ignite people's enthusiasm, inspire their endeavors, and foster the growth of innovative ventures." At the 2015 Davos Forum, Ma engaged in a discussion about data privacy with the host. When asked whether he would surrender user data at the request of the Chinese government, Ma responded,
How do you handle that if the Chinese government, they say, we want to see your files?
"Only for national security or anti-terrorism purposes." He said he had repeatedly stressed to his team the importance of retaining the utmost respect for the state without becoming one with them.
In love with the government, but don't marry them.
So why did Jack Ma dare publicly express such bold statements in socialist China? Perhaps we can find the answer through his entrepreneurial journey. Ma was born in Hangzhou, Zhejiang Province, on September 10, 1964. He was the middle of 3 children, with an older brother and a younger sister. His mother, Kui Wenkai, was initially a factory worker in Hangzhou. She later joined Wuxi County's Pingtan Performance Troupe to pursue her passion for the region's unique folk art of storytelling and ballad singing. His father, Ma Laifa, worked as a photographer at the Hangzhou Photography Picture Agency throughout the 1950s and 60s. However, sharing his wife's love for folk art, he later switched careers and transitioned to the folk art industry, eventually becoming the chairman of the Zhejiang Folk Art Association in 1990. Ma was a thin and frail child, often targeted by classmates for bullying. Despite this, he never hesitated to stand up for himself, once even sustaining a head injury that required 13 stitches. Although he possessed bright and intelligent eyes, he didn't fully inherit his parents' pleasing features. With prominent cheekbones, sunken cheeks, and a large forehead tapering down to a small chin, his appearance was distinctive. In later years, these characteristics earned him the nickname E.T. Ma was also an avid reader of Jin Yong's novels and, in his childhood, dreamed of becoming a heroic martial artist despite consistently poor academic performance. It wasn't until middle school that the turning point occurred. A beautiful geography teacher entered his life, sparking his interest in learning. In an effort to engage her students in geography, his teacher shared a personal anecdote about her experience at Westlake. Recalling a visit where she was approached by foreign travelers seeking recommendations for sightseeing, she amazed them with both her detailed knowledge of the city and fluency in English. While the story didn't ignite Ma's interest in geography, it did make him realize the importance of learning English. Afterward, Ma persuaded his parents to purchase a pocket radio, through which he began learning English from broadcasts. In his free time, Ma also enjoyed volunteering as a tour guide for foreigners at various attractions in Hangzhou, using it as an opportunity to practice his spoken English. In the summer of 1980, Ma crossed paths with the Morley family from Australia at Gushan Park in Hangzhou. During their time in China, he formed a close bond with their son, David Morley, such that even after the Morleys departed for Australia, they maintained correspondence for years onwards. Throughout his college years, the Morleys generously provided him with support, contributing over $200 Australian in a little over 2 years, a substantial amount in the 1980s. In 1985, they invited him to visit Australia, where he stayed with them for 29 days in the quaint city of Newcastle. This marked Ma's first international trip, a pivotal experience that left a lasting impact on him. Reflecting on the experience years later, he mused, "Without those 29 days, my perspective today would be vastly different." Upon his marriage, the Morleys gifted him with 22,000 Australian dollars, assisting him in purchasing his marital home. Later, after Ma found success in his entrepreneurial endeavors, He reciprocated their kindness by contributing a substantial sum of money and valuable items to the Morley family. However, we will delve into the relationship between Ma and the Morleys another time. For now, let's continue through his early adulthood. In 1982, at the age of 18, Ma took the college entrance examination with ambitious dreams of attending Peking University. However, he was left dumbfounded when the results were released. Having scored just 1 point in the mathematics exam, his chances of gaining admission to even a modest university seemed bleak, let alone Peking University. Confronted with the harsh reality of being unable to pursue higher education, he found himself compelled to seek employment. Over the course of his search, he applied for a total of 11 different positions, only to face rejection each time. He even attempted to become a security guard, applying alongside his cousin, but was rejected while his cousin secured a position. Undeterred, he pursued a career as a police officer, but once again found himself the sole applicant among 5 to be turned down. When reminiscing about his past experiences, he often recounts his failed attempt to join KFC, where he was the only one who didn't make the cut out of 24 applicants.
23 people accepted. I was the only one guy.
Ma once described his young self as a loser. In 1983, he failed the college entrance exam for the second time with a meager improvement in his mathematics exam score of 19 points. The following year, in his third attempt at the exam, he finally achieved 89 points in mathematics, but still fell short of the undergraduate admission line by 5 points. Fortunately, his outstanding performance in the English exam earned him a special admission to Hangzhou Normal University's English major. Once in college, Ma seemed to have undergone an enlightenment-like transformation and became an exemplary student. He excelled in academic performance and focused on interpersonal development. He ranked among the top students in his major courses and held positions as president of the Student Union and the Hangzhou Federation of Students. During this time, he also found love in the name of Zhang Ying, a fellow student at the same university who recognized his remarkable energy and talent beneath his unassuming appearance, and the two supported each other for decades afterward. In 1988, after completing his studies, Ma was appointed to work as an English teacher at Hangzhou Institute of Electronic Technology. Upon his departure from the school, Huang Shumeng, then vice president of Hangzhou Normal University, told him, "Other graduates are usually provided career opportunities to teach English in primary or secondary schools. However, due to your outstanding academic performance, I have made a special recommendation for you to teach at the institute. Promise me you will dedicate at least 5 years to this role." Ma gratefully accepted the offer. Upon joining the institute, he quickly became a teacher who was highly sought after by students. He was known for his passionate teaching style and witty remarks. Interestingly, Jiang Fang, who later became one of Alibaba's 18 arhats, was his student then. She described him as a dynamic presence that illuminated the classroom. While other teachers stuck to the curriculum, his teaching was unrestrained. He could seamlessly transition from discussing foreign cultures to philosophical reflections on life, often making the students feel that the end of class bell came all too soon. As his reputation grew, several organizations sought to poach him. Still, despite numerous lucrative offers, remembering his commitment to Huang Shumeng, he decided to stay and remained working there for 6 years. In the early 1990s, Ma began to gain recognition in the translation community in Hangzhou and established the first English Corner by Westlake. In 1992, while continuing his teaching career, he embarked on his first entrepreneurial venture. Using spare time, he founded the Haibo Translation Agency with a few retired teachers. Despite modest initial earnings of 700 yuan in the first month, they struggled to cover basic operating expenses, with rent alone as high as 1,500 yuan. Undeterred, he sought ways to keep the agency afloat, investing his salary and wholesaling small commodities from Guangzhou, Yiwu, and other places to subsidize expenses. In 1995, Ma was presented with the chance to travel to the United States. At that time, the Tonglu County government in Hangzhou City was embroiled in a contract dispute with an American company over a highway construction project. Recognizing his proficiency in English, the government sought his assistance in resolving the matter stateside. Although the negotiations did not yield a favorable outcome, he took the opportunity to visit a longtime acquaintance, an American international educator named Bill Aho, in Seattle after completing his official duties in Los Angeles. Bill's son-in-law, Stuart Trusty, worked at Seattle's pioneering ISP company, VBN. Ma visited Stewart at Bill's recommendation. According to his later accounts in various interviews and talk shows, the encounter unfolded as follows. "This is the internet. You can search for anything on it," Stewart explained to Ma, encouraging him to explore its capabilities. But Ma was hesitant, saying, "I can't touch this thing. If I break it, it should be costly." Stewart chuckled and reassured him, "It's not a bomb. Go ahead." With cautious curiosity, Ma entered the word beer into Yahoo's search bar. He was presented with search results showing beers from around the world, Japanese, American, German, but none from China. He then searched for Chinese beer, only to receive the response, no data. Inspired by the possibilities, Ma asked Stewart if he could put information about his translation company online. Stewart agreed and promptly created a simple web page for Haibo Translation Agency, featuring a brief introduction and an email address. On the same day, after returning from a stroll, Stewart told Ma his new email address had received messages. Opening his inbox, he found 5 inquiries from individuals in the United States, Japan, and Europe. One message stood out, "This is the first Chinese company I found on the internet. Where are you located? I'm interested in doing business with you." This pivotal encounter marked Jack Ma's first ever experience of the internet's immense transformative potential. He keenly realized that a new era had dawned. In March 1995, after returning to China, Jack Ma invited 24 of his friends and students to his home, where he shared his unexpected encounters in the US and expressed his desire to establish an internet company. At that time, the vast majority of people in China were unfamiliar with the concept of the internet. So it's no surprise that almost all of them opposed the idea. Only one person offered words of comfort, suggesting that Ma should give it a shot if he truly wished to pursue this, and later pivot direction if needed. Soon after, Ma resigned from the Hangzhou Institute of Electronic Technology. In April 1995, having contributed his entire savings and money borrowed from relatives, he managed to pool together 20,000 yuan, founding China's first internet company, Hangzhou Haibo Computer Service Company, Limited. At its inception, the company had only 3 employees, Jack Ma, his wife Zhang Ying, and He Yibing, a computing teacher from the Hangzhou Institute of Electronic Technology. Then, on May 8, 1995, the company launched its service China Pages on the internet, a mere 3 months before China Telecom opened the internet to the country. Jack's company operated on a business model where they requested information from Chinese companies and published it on China Pages to drive promotion and revenue growth. Since China had not yet connected to the internet, Ma had to mail their clients' business information to VBN in Seattle. VBN would then create home pages for these companies, print them out, and ship them back to Hangzhou, where Ma would present the printed web pages to his clients as proof of service delivery. At the time, the service charged 20,000 yuan per client for a homepage featuring 3,000 words and a photo, of which 12,000 yuan went to VBN. In July 1995, China Pages created a website known as the Golden Pigeon Project for the Zhejiang Provincial Public Affairs Office, aimed at promoting Zhejiang's economy and culture online. This initiative received widespread coverage by newspapers such as Qianjiang Evening News, contributing to China Pages' rise to fame. Subsequently, the Wanghu Hotel in Hangzhou approached them and engaged their services, becoming their second client. In September of that year, the United Nations held the 4th World Conference on Women in Beijing. Many international participants visited Hangzhou post-conference. As the Wanghu Hotel was the only one that could be found online at the time, its quarterly turnover exceeded that of the previous year. However, despite their best efforts, they continued to encounter significant challenges in the survival and growth of their business. Such were a sign of the times. In 1996, Hangzhou Telecom entered the market with its own Yellow Pages service, using the domain name ChinesePage.com, which closely resembled Ma's China Pages. While Hangzhou Telecom had a substantial registered capital of 300 million yuan, Ma's company operated with a mere 20,000 yuan. The discrepancy in potential was unbridgeable. Eventually, Ma agreed to a partnership with Hangzhou Telecom, which subsequently acquired 70% of his company's shares for 1.4 million yuan, resulting in Ma losing control of the company. In 1997, he divested his remaining company shares and ventured to Beijing with 6 confidants to seek opportunities. Ma was then invited to be the general manager of the China International E-Commerce Center, a division under the Ministry of Foreign Trade and Economic Cooperation, MOFTEC. He assumed responsibilities for developing MOFTEC's official website and overseeing the development of an online trading market for Chinese commodities. Additionally, he played a key role in establishing Guofutong, a company under the Ministry of Commerce, where he assumed the position of general manager. However, after just over a year, Ma realized that the bureaucratic nature of government work was unsuitable for him. Its rigid adherence to established protocols and the need for constant approval from superiors on even the most trivial matters prompted him to contemplate resignation. In late 1998, Ma told the 6 confidants who had followed him to Beijing that he intended to depart from the capital and return to Hangzhou. He presented them with 3 options. They could opt to remain at the State Economic and Trade Commission and enjoy stability. He could also recommend them to large companies like Sohu and Yahoo. Or they could join him in returning to Hangzhou and embark on a journey to build a company from the ground up, a decision that Ma promised they would never regret. He urged them not to rush into a decision and gave them 3 days to consider their options. However, to his surprise, within a few minutes, all of them decided to return to Hangzhou with him. In hindsight, this decision would turn out to be one of the best they had ever made in their lifetimes. Before departing from Beijing, Ma took his team to the Great Wall and captured this iconic photo. In 1999, on the 5th day of the Chinese New Year, 18 people filled a room in a residence in the lakeside garden community of Hangzhou. Jack Ma stood at the center, delivering a passionate address that spanned 3 hours. He even arranged for a camera to record the entire meeting, articulating his vision to establish an e-commerce platform tailored to China's small and medium-sized enterprises and help facilitate their expansion into overseas markets. This momentous occasion marked the inception of Alibaba, heralding its emergence as China's internet titan. Dubbed the 18 Arhats Conference, this event remains one of the most iconic episodes in the annals of China's internet evolution. The inspiration behind the name Alibaba stemmed from Ma's fascination with the fairy tale Alibaba and the 40 Thieves. This fable is renowned worldwide with a near universally consistent pronunciation of its syllables. Moreover, "Open, Sesame," is the phrase that follows Alibaba and symbolizes the company's mission and future to open the door to prosperity and global trade opportunities for SMEs. Upon its establishment, Ma set ambitious internationalization goals for Alibaba, perceiving its true competitors situated in Silicon Valley. Confident in their trajectory, Ma envisioned Alibaba's ascension to a publicly listed company by 2002.
我们把阿里巴巴定位，就把它作为国际站点。我希望阿里巴巴在2002年成为上市公司。
In the modest confines of an ordinary apartment, concepts like public listing and online communities were quite out of place, akin to fairy tales. According to recollections from those present, they struggled to grasp the magnitude of his proposals but felt awkward to interrupt his passionate delivery. Nevertheless, they were all captivated by his enthusiasm and rallied behind his vision. The 18 Arhats quickly raised 500,000 yuan as startup capital, and on April 15, 1999, Alibaba.com went live. In May, Joseph Tsai, a senior executive in the Greater China region for the Swedish investment company Investor AB, embarked on a visit to mainland China for project evaluations. Intrigued by the word-of-mouth reputation of a man named Jack Ma, he flew to Hangzhou to explore potential investment opportunities with him. Upon arrival, he was surprised to find that Alibaba wasn't even a registered company and had no office space. Instead, the team of 18 members worked from Ma's residence. The makeshift workplace was furnished with bedsheets laid out on the floor for anyone to rest when necessary, and there was a lingering odor of feet in the air. Despite the less-than-ideal environment, he observed that everyone on the team displayed remarkable energy and enthusiasm, particularly Ma. He stood out starkly from the Wall Street elites and Silicon Valley upstarts Tsai had previously encountered, whose focus revolved solely around capital gain. Throughout their discussion, Ma passionately shared his ideals and visions without even a mention of the dollar. This departure from the norm left a profound impression on Tsai, inspiring him to consider joining Alibaba. Upon returning to the US, he confided in his wife, Clara Wu Tsai, but she was skeptical. After all, Tsai hailed from a lineage of esteemed lawyers in Taiwan, having earned his prestigious Juris Doctor degree from Yale Law School in the 1990s. Later, he even seamlessly transitioned from a tax lawyer to a private equity investor and ascended through the ranks of Investor AB with an annual salary of $700,000, a substantial sum equivalent to 5.8 million yuan at that time. To persuade his wife, Tsai brought her to Hangzhou to meet Jack Ma. While boating on Westlake, Tsai suddenly turned and said to Ma, "I want to join Alibaba." Ma was so startled that he almost fell into the lake. "But I can only afford to pay you a monthly salary of 500 yuan, Ma said, to which Tsai readily replied, "Deal." Before Ma could fully grasp the sudden turn of events, Tsai's wife Clara also chimed in as advocate. She asked Ma to let him join, or it would be her husband's lifetime regret. And so, Tsai became the man behind the success of Jack Ma. Many years later, Ma said in an interview that he owed his achievements to 4 individuals: Masayoshi Son, Jerry Yang, Jin Yong, and Joseph Tsai. But if he had to choose one to which he owed the most, it would be Tsai. Today, Tsai's net worth has soared to $7.3 billion US. By joining Alibaba, Tsai not only contributed to Ma's success, but also forged his own path to prosperity. Well, that's a story for another time. When Joseph Tsai joined Alibaba, the first thing he did was register the company and educate everyone on commercial operations, starting with the basics concepts like shares and shareholders' rights. Thus, he laid the groundwork for Alibaba's standardized future operations. Then he went about tackling the most critical problem Alibaba faced: securing funds. Alongside Ma, they approached 38 investors, only to be rejected 38 times. This was kept down low. It wasn't until later that everyone learned the truth about the extent of their rejections at the time. Just when Alibaba was at the end of its resources, Tsai turned to his old friend, Shirley Lin, the head of Goldman Sachs Asia. After a visit, Shirley Lin was deeply impressed by the Alibaba team, despite their humble environment and odorous office. In October 1999, Goldman Sachs and 4 other institutions collectively invested $5 million in Alibaba, taking a 40% stake and completing Alibaba's angel investment. In January 2000, Masayoshi Son, the founder of SoftBank Group, injected another $20 million into Alibaba, which helped the company survive the internet downturn of the millennium. In March 2000, Alibaba had yet to turn a profit, but the Silicon Valley.com bubble had already started to burst. The Nasdaq index began a downward spiral by mid-March, triggering investors to tighten their spending. Despite the rapid growth of its user base at the time, Alibaba had yet to find a viable monetization model. Following successful financing, Ma embarked on a swift expansion. He moved Alibaba's headquarters to an impressive office space secured in Hong Kong, established server infrastructure and a tech hub in the US, set up offices in the UK, South Korea, Japan, and Australia, and hired many elite talents globally. However, this ambitious expansion came at a cost, with Alibaba burning through over $1 million in operations every month. By year's end, the company's account balance had dwindled to less than $7 million, leading investors to withhold further funding. Alibaba confronted the stark reality of potential closure if profitability remained elusive. In response, Ma immediately implemented a series of reforms, including headquarters relocation, international office closures, and global layoffs, the last of which he found particularly difficult. Peng Lei, one of Alibaba's founding members, said that Ma was extremely sentimental and could not bear to see the departure of those he once worked with. Porter Erisman, the then vice president of Alibaba and author of Alibaba's World, once recalled a poignant moment when Ma called him, trembling in his voice like he had been crying, and questioned him about the morality of the layoffs. Ma asked Erisman, "Am I a bad person for laying off so many people?" Despite Erisman's attempts to reassure him, he was sure he had never caught Ma in such a pessimistic and uncertain state. Regardless of Ma's emotional difficulties, these cost-saving measures effectively halved Alibaba's monthly operating expenses to $500,000, which kept the company afloat for an extra 14 months. However, reducing expenditure alone was far from enough. To ensure long-term viability, a robust monetization strategy was imperative. In October 2000, Alibaba launched its Chinese supplier service. The membership fee was initially priced at 10,000 yuan per annum and later increased to 60,000 to 120,000 yuan. At that time, most small and medium-sized enterprise (SME) owners in China lacked proficiency in foreign languages and had limited knowledge of international trade. Nonetheless, their products boasted exceptional quality and affordability, rendering them highly competitive in global markets. Alibaba's service effectively addressed the pain points encountered by SME owners by providing a platform for them to showcase their products. Business owners posted their product information on this platform. Alibaba then recorded this information on different CDs and attended various international exhibitions to distribute it, acting as the overseas sales agent for these businesses. In March 2002, Alibaba unveiled another membership service, TrustPass. Initially priced at around 2,000 yuan per annum, it was later increased to over 6,000 yuan. The impetus behind this service stemmed from Alibaba's recognition of merchants' primary concern, the credibility of their trading partners. Alibaba established a comprehensive merchant certification process, requiring every TrustPass member to undergo authentication. Despite the arduous authentication process, the service yielded favorable results. TrustPass evolved into a reliable identity verification tool for merchants engaging in negotiations on Alibaba's platform. By the end of 2002, after a series of revenue-boosting and cost-cutting measures, Alibaba had finally achieved profitability. Today, Alibaba's China supplier and TrustPass services alone generate hundreds of millions in revenue annually. Yet, even greater challenges loomed on the horizon. How did the world's largest B2B trading platform pave the way for the emergence of a fintech unicorn? What prompted Jack Ma to declare, just before the official launch of Alipay, "If someone has to go to jail, let it be me"? Why was Ant Group's approved IPO listing suddenly called off, prompting Ma to be summoned by 4 regulators? What transpired behind the scenes to provoke such scrutiny? Who were the ones truly affected by Ant Group's activities? With so many questions to be answered, we'll continue to delve deeper into the life of Jack Ma and the ups and downs of his commercial empire in part 2 of the installment.